Shalom, this is Yair Davidiy from Brit-Am, Hebrew Awareness. This is the movement that believes the lost 10 tribes are amongst Western peoples. That the majority of the Israelite nation is amongst peoples of Western Europe and the offshoots in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the USA and related nations. And as well as being along the Atlantic coast, places of Europe, such as Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, France, Switzerland. So I say that every one of those places is descended from the tribes of Israel, but a significant proportion of them are. An historically important section of them are descendants of the Israelite tribes. The Israelite tribes, originally 12 tribes, they divided into two different sections. The northern section was taken into captivity by the Assyrians, and they moved to Western Europe. They moved in stages. A portion of them moved through the Mediterranean Sea, and others moved overland. Some went north, some went to the west. Eventually they all converged on the same regions, and elements from specific tribes tended to gather together, to recoalesce, to come back together and create these modern day nations that can be equated with Israelite tribes. And that is what we've done, that's what we do, and we do this through research and we prove it. Now, we're about to discuss an interesting phenomenon. Did the Almighty leave his imprint on the configuration of mountains in the land of Israel, in the territory of Ephraim? Do satellite images of these areas show that the name of God Almighty and the name of Ephraim is imprinted on the areas attributed to Ephraim, that Ephraim was given as his inheritance? I myself live in the land of Israel. I live in what is considered the West Bank. I live in a township named Beitar Illit. Beitar Illit, it is an ultra-Orthodox community, have 80,000 people or more, and it's spread out along the ridges of mountaintops, and it's quite nice, quite a nice community. A lot of people speak English. A good portion of the inhabitants are Hasidim, what are called Hasidim, that is ultra-Orthodox Jews who have rabbis, who have traditions of their own. There are also other regular mainstream Orthodox Jews here, and also Sephardic Jews, Jews from parents came from Eastern countries, from African countries, Asian countries, and so on. And we're all here together, and we all like it, and it's quite large, and people like living here, and they like being together, and people have large families. We have the average family size, and this community is the largest for anywhere in Israel. It's not unusual for some families to have 15 or more children, and 10 or 12 is usual. This area is more or less to the south of Jerusalem. It is near the biblical area of Bethlehem, and it is probably in the region, the territorial domain of Judah. Judah was together with Benjamin in the kingdom of Judah. The kingdom of Judah, after the 10 tribes left or separated, there remained the tribes of Judah and Benjamin together, also most of the tribe of Levi, also minority representatives from other tribes, all together in what is known as the kingdom of Judah. It's named after Judah. And where we live here is a portion of Judah. To the north of Jerusalem, you had Benjamin. In other words, Benjamin and Judah neighbored each other. Benjamin was to the north. The border between Benjamin and Judah ran through the Temple Mount. Where the temple was, that was the border between Benjamin and Judah. They even say that the altar itself was in the domain of Judah, but all the territory around the altar was that of Benjamin. At all events, that was where the border between Judah and Benjamin was. Then they went northward and up until Brit-El. Brit-El was on the northern border of Benjamin. There were probably two settlements, neighbouring settlements, both of them named Brit-El. One settlement was in the area of Benjamin. The other settlement neighbouring it was in the area of Ephraim. They neighboured each other. Ephraim was the neighbour of Benjamin to the north and also to the west. And there too there was the tribe of Dan, a portion of the tribe of Dan. Dan was in three different sections. Dan originally received a section to the west of Ephraim and to the west of Judah, to the west of Jerusalem on the sea coast, but he had trouble keeping that area, and a good portion of the tribe of Dan moved. They moved to the Dan in the Galilee, by the Sea of Galilee, and also they went further north to what is now southeast Turkey, where they established their own little kingdom known as Small, and they were known in history as the Dananu, that is the Danites, the people from Dan. And they neighboured an enclave of people from Judah known as Yair, which is quite important, and not much is known about it. We have done research on the subject, and we have written of it. And we have written of it. At all events, as we were saying, Brit-El was on the border, two settlements of Brit-El were on the borders of Benjamin and Ephraim. From Brit-El, the border continued northwards. And until it reached Shiloh. Shiloh was in the middle of the area of Ephraim. Shiloh had been the place where the Israelites had first set up the tabernacle after they came from out of Egypt. They moved through the wilderness. Then they came to the Jordan River. They crossed the Jordan River and they conquered the land and divided it up. And they had the period of the Judges, and for a good portion several centuries, and for most of that time, the tabernacle was like a miniature temple. It was a precursor of the temple. It went before the temple. Everything that was in the temple, in effect, was in the tabernacle. And the tabernacle had served as a temple in the desert. And they brought the tabernacle with them when they conquered the land. And they re-established the tabernacle in the area of Ephraim, in the area of Ephraim, in the city of Shiloh. And you can still see ruins that probably pertain to that era. And there is evidence of the tabernacle having been in that region. Eventually the tabernacle in Shiloh was destroyed, and then they moved to a few other places for not that long, till eventually coming to Jerusalem, where they built the temple. At all events, Shiloh was a sacred place, and the region between Brit-El and Shiloh is mountainous. And satellite images of these mountains show the contours of the mountains, or the mountain ridges, in the shape of Hebrew letters. And they spell two names from the south to the north. Two names in Hebrew letters, in Aramaic Hebrew letters that we will explain in a minute. And the first name that they spell is the name of God Almighty, the holy name that you were forbidden, or that it later became forbidden to pronounce, and it still is forbidden to pronounce. and it is written in such a way that its decipherment is a little blurred in the initial letters, but it's there, okay? And the second name, Ephraim, is quite clear once you see it. Ephraim, it spells out in Hebrew letters the name Ephraim, and it reaches from the south to the north up into Shiloh, and it is spelling that name. And that name now, the territory of Ephraim, is what is known as the of the Palestinian Authority. It is controlled in principle by the Palestinians, but there are Jewish settlements there, and the Palestinians should not be there. And it is written on the mountains, on these mountain ridges, the name Ephraim, proving that the Almighty knew that such a problem as we have now would come about. And in advance he wrote his imprint, he wrote down in the mountains, in geological formations, that that land pertains to Ephraim. And you can see for yourself on these images that we have here, satellite images, and originally these images were part of a map that was sold to tourists, a satellite image of the Holy Land. It was quite popular and may still well be available. I always have a copy somewhere in my papers. I believe I probably have a copy of it somewhere in my own papers, and it shows the name of God, and on the name of Ephraim you can see it quite clearly once it's pointed out to you. If you're not looking for it, you wouldn't see it though. If you're not looking for it, you wouldn't see it, and it may be that the people who printed that map were not even aware of its existence, but someone saw it, someone found it, and it came to my attention by someone called Del Griffin, who published a notice about it. And when I asked him, he wrote me that he received the information from a website belonging to Wendell Jones. Wendell Jones is a famous individual, a famous character. He's, some people claim that the movie character, that the movie, a series of films that were produced concerning Indiana Jones was based or inspired by Wendell Jones. Wendell Jones spent a good portion of his life looking for the covenant, looking for the Ark of the Covenant. And he believed he found it, was close to finding it, and he did have important finds of his own. He didn't necessarily find the Ark of the Covenant, but he found other things. He was known, he was respected in the field. He may have been considered a little eccentric, but it was recognized that in his particular field of interest, he knew what he was talking about. And in addition to that, he was also one of the first promoters of the Noahide movement. The Noahide movement is not Jewish. It is dedicated. It's a kind of a movement for biblical principles, for non-Jews to accept upon them biblical principles without converting to Judaism or without becoming very Jewish at all, if at all. In other words, to be righteous Gentiles, and these are principles that are found in Jewish sources such as Maimonides and the Talmud and so on, and they say that the seven major principles that everyone who is born, whether they're Jewish or non-Jewish, have to abide by. 7 major principles, and they're of all the descendants of Noah. The first man and woman was Adam and Eve, and after Adam and Eve you had the people mankind multiplied upon the face of the earth, but they also did evil things. They went along the wrong track. They corrupted their ways, so the Almighty decided to destroy them, but he kept Noah alive. Noah and his wife and his sons, his three sons, Shem, Ham and Japheth, and their wives, and he brought them into the ark, a floating type of boat, and they went into the ark along with animals, at least one pair, male and female, of all the animals in the earth. They all fit into the ark together with provisions. And they were in the ark when the water in the depths, subterranean reserves of water broke forth and came out on the surface together with the rain that came down and covered all the earth and drowned everyone apart from the people who were in the ark, and so that from those people who were saved in the ark, all mankind today are descended. So these principles are applied to them, and that is why they are called the 7 laws of Noah. Noah in Hebrew is pronounced as Noah, not as Noah, even though the difference is not great. These principles say that you should not curse God, you should not disbelieve in God, you should not kill, not steal, should not engage in sexual immorality, homosexuality is forbidden, and you also should establish a system of justice to administer justice in the earth. So those are the basic principles that apply to all of B'nai Noah, and Vendel Jones was active in promoting awareness of these principles. When he was active, we had just begun to get a movement, Brit-Am, Hebrew awareness, to get it started, up and going. I got in touch with him. I spoke to him, and he was not impressed, to say. He said that he is non-Jewish, he doesn't want to be Jewish, and that you have Jews and you have non-Jews, and there's no reason to confuse people by introducing a new concept of members of the lost 10 tribes. He didn't say he believed in it, did not believe in it, he just saw no reason for it. It was a superfluous distraction, one could say, in his eyes. So we agreed to disagree, and that was that. One more point that we should notice, that the words of these letters written in the stones, written in the formations, the geological formations of a good portion of the earth's surface, in the territory of Ephraim, a good portion, these names are written in Hebrew letters. That is modern Hebrew. Well, modern Hebrew, dating back to about 500 BCE, it's not that modern. Maybe a little bit before, a little bit after, but around that time, that was when the Jews returned to. So what do you have? You had the Assyrians. First the Assyrians came down and they conquered all of the northern tribes of Israel, took them into exile. In their places of exile they rebelled. And in stages they combined with other peoples of Gomer, Cimmerians and Scythians and others, and they moved to the north and moved to the west, and eventually converged in Western Europe. And they stayed there. They forgot who they were. They became lost. They forgot their ancestry. They lost awareness of where they came from. Even once they'd been in the land of Israel before their exile, they'd gone astray and worshipped foreign idols and borrowed foreign customs and intermixed with foreign people. And according to tradition, they'd stopped practicing circumcision even. They'd become Gentiles, almost complete Gentiles, whilst they were still here. And after that they were taken into exile, and there were pressures put on them in their places of exile to change their religion, to conform to the ways of the peoples around them, which they did, so they quickly forgot who they were. But the word traces were left, and here and there were legends, there were traditions, there are indications that we look after, we look out for, and we find them, and we put things together, and we prove that the lost 10 tribes are amongst them, or they are a portion of the lost 10 tribes of Israel. And this is confirmed by the Bible and confirmed by rabbinical sources. But it's a lot of work, and we do it. This is our task. This is what we have to do, and we do it, and it is doable. So the words are written in Hebrew. We have these words that indicate that the Almighty in advance knew that in our time a certain message would have to be given to us, and that message is what is written in the rocks, the name of God Almighty, and the name of Ephraim, in the area of Ephraim. And it is used, and the letters used are those of that the Jews are those that the Jews used. The Jews write their Sefer Torah, the Torah scrolls are written in, that also modern Hebrew is based upon. These letters, originally they are considered to be Aramean letters. Aram was a region in Mesopotamia, and also to the areas west of it, in what is now Syria. And they had their own alphabet, and this alphabet was eventually borrowed by the Persians and by the Parthians who ruled over Persia after them. They all used the Aramaic alphabet. And the Jews, when they were in Babylon, that is after the 10 tribes were taken into exile, about 120 or so years later, the Jews who had remained behind were also conquered by the Babylonians. And they too were taken into exile, they were taken to Babylon, and after 70 years they returned. And when they returned, they had a struggle to assert themselves, and the people were intermixing with the locals, the local Gentiles, with the Samaritans, with the Edomites, with the Ammonites, the Moabites, the Philistines, and others. People from Ashdod, Ashkelon, all kinds of foreigners were there, and the Jews had returned, were intermixing with them. There was a problem, they were intermarrying with them, and Ezra and Nehemiah had to forbid them from doing this. And another thing is that they were using the same alphabet, and this alphabet was known as the Phoenician alphabet, or the Canaanite alphabet. It was used by the Canaanites. Even though most archaeological finds, most known archaeological evidence for this type of writing actually pertains to the ancient Hebrews. The Hebrews are considered to have taken it from the Canaanites. And foreigners all around were also using it. The problem was that they were misapplying it, they were corrupting it, they were taking letters and changing their meanings, changing the way they were pronounced, switching them around. Modern day example may be the letter B, base in Hebrew, B, the sound B in Hebrew. The Arabs have a tendency to pronounce B as P, or P as B. So that Shakespeare becomes Shakespeare. And so too these peoples were doing the same with the Canaanite alphabet that they were using, and the Jews were intermixing with them. The Jews were a minority, and the Jews were in a situation where they were easily influenced by what their neighbours were doing. So it was decided to take the Aramaic alphabet, in which was homogeneous, which there was universal agreement as to how the letters should be pronounced. There was no problem, there's no worry, there's no trepidation of the meanings becoming confused. And they introduced that. And so that Aramaic alphabet is an alphabet the Jews have used ever since.